All right, welcome in once again. It's time for the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you. Thank you so much for making us your first listen when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. We've gone through some thoughts, some off-season things, and now, well, it is time to actually look even further backwards. Robyn and I are going to look over our shoulder at the season that was the final year of the Arizona Coyotes and talk about 5 areas that we think the Utah Hockey Club needs to address heading into their inaugural season in Salt Lake.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is going to be a two-parter, so buckle up. We have a lot to talk about, and we're going to drop this Monday and Wednesday, so part 1 coming out on a Monday. Right now, if you could just give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. If you like what you hear at the end, maybe you want to wait till we're done talking before you figure out if you really want us in your inbox every day and on your podcast downloads. We appreciate it. Follow me at Callahan on Air on Twitter, at Robyn with a Y _ Leaño on X, Twitter, whatever you'd like to call it. And Robyn, give us the lowdown for the rest of the socials. The Utah Hockey Club Locked On podcast. Where can we be found?
Yeah, on Twitter or X, it is at LO_NHL Utah. It is the same for Threads and Instagram. If you have a TikTok and want to follow our TikTok, we are at LO_Utah Hockey.
I have not learned any of the dances yet, so I'm just warning you now. Not that I would. I might try to learn a dance or two. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see if that would ever. I don't know if there's any demand for that on TikTok. I'll be completely honest.
Subscribe to us on TikTok. Give us a follow on TikTok, and we'll find out.
There you go. We'll leave some mystery in it for you. But okay, so enough of the silliness. Well, maybe not. We'll probably be sillier later on. But this year is such an interesting year. We've talked about it at various times for the Utah Hockey Club. There's a lot of things they're building on. There's a lot of things they're doing for the first time. It's going to be the first training camp, their first everything in Utah. Never been there before. Here comes the NHL. Are you ready? Well, the thing is, this team has played before, and this is the old Arizona Coyotes franchise as far as the assets go. Now, it will make the point again. Maybe this is your first time you're listening to the show. The record book does not transfer. So everything that starts from zero, but they're bringing all the assets from that old Coyotes franchise with them. And Robyn, you and I have been around this franchise for several years. I, worked for them for a brief period of time. Well, a couple of years, actually, 2016 and 2018. So I was watching a lot of those products develop in the American Hockey League and move their way up to the NHL eventually. You have been around that American Hockey League franchise as well as the NHL franchise, so we are extremely familiar with the product. But now I feel like it's entering, even if they didn't end up in Utah, this is kind of phase 2 of the construction, if you will.
Yeah, it really is. This is the next level of the rebuild of, at this point, what we'll just call Bill Armstrong and Andre Tourigny's team, because they're the ones that are running the show. They're the ones that are that have been building it from the ground up and have been, nursing it back to health from a broken team that was around that pandemic years.
And a team that, too, I mean, historically, had its ups and downs, don't get me wrong, but in the very beginning of the Coyotes franchise, they had star power.
Mm-hmm.
They had Wayne Gretzky for a coach in the late 2000s.
Which didn't end well, but
it didn't end well. Turns out the great one was not a great coach. But I mean, they did have that. He was even part owner of the franchise for a while. But also after that, I mean, they went on to become a big playoff team with a deep playoff run. That they were a good, proud franchise. And then all the off-ice chicanery and skullduggery kicked in, and I think it kind of leached into the on-ice product as well. And so the last couple of years have been really difficult. There have been ownership changes. They've gone through a lot, and now another ownership change, but it seems like really a positive cultural transplant, which is something that I've been asking for a long time with these guys. And I think it's finally happening.
It is finally happening, and I feel like a lot of that just had to do with now that the Bill Armstrong and Andre Tourigny are now kind of they're actually, even the term answering is the right word here, but they now have the financial backing of someone who cares, who deeply cares about getting a winning team and getting being able to be competitive soon, but also understands that it's good not to rush and not to go full force, full throttle right into it.
Yeah, and I mean the passion and the commitment to the community. And one of the interesting things, we had a fan reach out to us on Twitter and recommend that we watch the 50 Years of Utah Jazz documentary, which I did watch. I actually sat down and made some time to watch it because it gives you a pretty good insight into Ryan Smith and what he's doing, why he's doing it, more importantly. And one of his pillars, and the one he says that he's taken with him everywhere he goes and in everything he does, is all in. And I think that you have to be all in if you're going to succeed in a project as big as a professional sports team. And the fact that he ended up being able to not only own the Jazz, but now own an NHL team and really build this for the state of Utah is really impressive. And so I think that is the kind of commitment you need from ownership to be successful in the National Hockey League. You really need them to be all in. And here's the other thing. I am a firm believer, Robyn, in that you hire people to do their job and then you let them go do your job. I don't want to micromanage you. I don't want to look over your shoulder at everything. If you need to come to me, come to me. And yes, there are certain things that you must check in with me as an owner, but I don't want to be a general manager. Otherwise, I make myself GM. I don't want to be a president of hockey ops. I don't want to be a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I hired you to do a job. Go do your job.
Yeah, and I feel like there's that too. Like, I think at this point, what it feels like, and again, I'm not saying this is exactly what the conversation went down, but I'm sure Ryan Smith went to Bill Armstrong, and it's just like, all right, this is the player budget for the year. Go crazy, do what you want. Like, I trust you
within reason. Don't go too crazy.
Of course, but I think that's the cool thing.
Be smart, crazy.
I think this is the cool thing. The cool thing, Tom, about what Bill Armstrong is like, Bill Armstrong was open about that. He was open about being told that he essentially was able to go crazy, but he knew not to do that, not to go, full on, full steam ahead, because that could lead to some problems. Wasn't afraid to make a splash, and this offseason he did make a splash, but he knew the limitations. He knew we needed to stop, and what this team needed to be this year, as well as next couple years beyond. Not rushing the rebuild that has been put into place and put into motion just in the last few years in Arizona and now in Utah.
One of the things they could have done was they could have gone out and really gotten aggressive after Montour, and they elected to pull back, which actually I think is a better move in the long term, especially given the trades they made and the moves they made at the draft. I think it worked out really well. And to allow that player and that giant chunk of salary to go unsigned and still be in your holster come trade deadline, come, whatever opportunities may show themselves, perhaps even early in the season. Maybe something won't work out somewhere with a team. You never know when a contract is going to become available that is actually favorable to you because you have properly weaponized your cap space. And that's going to lead into, Robyn, very nicely dovetails into the first thing I would like to talk about, which is special teams.
Special teams is going to be, I think, Tom, will be an interesting topic of some of the things that Arizona had multiple issues with. What I want to do, Tom, though, let's get in depth on that right after this.
And today's episode is brought to you in part by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
So the special teams, Tom, I had a lot of, I had moderate expectations for special teams last season with the Arizona Coyotes. I was looking into the team and I was like, okay, seeing where they were last year and where they're going to be in this year. Even the power play started off surprising to me. I was like, ooh, actually, you know what? They're doing okay. They're doing great. This power play is great. Penalty kill. Not so much. Towards the end of the season, it kind of flipped where penalty kill was like, okay, not bad. Power play, what in the world is that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a season of ups and downs on both sides of the special teams coin. The power play, I think, is going to be helped by the influx of talent that is coming in. I still think, you're going to have a continuation of Dursey being a big part of that power play, but Sergachev he's got PP1 QB written all over him. That's the spot I want to see him in. I want to see him be able to distribute the puck, to be able to shoot, to make things happen. I think that's going to be absolutely huge for them. They have a different personnel look now. And Robyn, you and I both talk about players ready to make a jump, players ready to make an impact. And I think another year of NHL work under the belt for some of these younger players might see them perchance ready to take a bit of a stride forward here. And I think you could really find some results with and not so much the Lawson Krauses of the world, but maybe some of the younger guys that were like, do we see some of these younger forwards taking a step forward? Well, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But do you see these guys? Do you see the Dylan Gunthers and the Josh Stones, the Logan Cooleys of the world, beginning to make that bigger impact? Matthias Michelli, where are they going to get a chance? And honestly, I think in camp that's going to be too another battle. I talk about wanting to watch the defense, and I think everybody will. But watching the special teams breakdown, how do they readjust talent on the power play is going to be a big one.
And I think that's one of the huge questions for me, Tom, and taking a look at that. I feel like either whatever it was last year when it was trying to push Logan Cooley a little bit too much, maybe trying to pair him alongside Clayton Keller because we got two powers, two the potential superstars here, really good forwards. It's really gonna help out the help out the offense and really instill. It didn't do that for some reason, and I feel like again for no fault of its own, Cooley and Keller kind of didn't really match as a line. So, but who will? Maybe who can step in? Can Michelli be a PP1 kind of guy? Or can Gunther be a PP1 kind of guy? Like you mentioned some of those players, who can be that, fill. And again, this is not a dig against Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley is fantastic. And I feel like this goes kind of what we were talking about with defensive players and whatever. Sometimes chemistry is a huge part of where you fit on a line. You can't have all your best players on one line. In this case, what we're talking about is a power play line. you have to work and figure out what's the best strategy to put forward the best unit, not just the best players, but the best unit. So I'm really curious to see exactly what adjustments Utah is going to make and Andre Tournier is going to make, and take a look and seeing where his mind is at this point. And again, a lot of it is, like you mentioned, Tom, is going to be what kind of like at least some of the questions asked about that when training camp opens.
And another thing that is a very real, and some fans might not realize this, but a very real issue is that sometimes young players feel they have to be deferential to the older players.
Yes.
So when you put someone who's 20, 21, 22 on a line with one of the elder statesmen of the team, instead of shooting the puck, they may feel pressured to pass. Even if that's not a real thing, even if it hasn't been stated, there is that deferential behavior sometimes in the pecking order. And so some of these younger guys, and Robyn, you talk about this all the time, you want to see them shoot the puck more.
Yes.
But they have to know that that's their role, and then they have to be comfortable knowing that's their role is the other part of it. You can tell someone something till that you're blue in the face, but if they don't accept it and they don't understand it, then it doesn't really matter. It's not going to get through to them. It's not going to pierce the gray matter. So if
Yeah.
you are going to have somebody that you want to contribute more to the power play by shooting, say, look, I don't want you to be a bumper this year. I want you to be, the guy on the off wing for the one time. Okay, great. But when the puck comes your way, you better shoot, instead of just, receive, pass, back up top to the D.
And
don't do that.
And that very well could have been the issue that Cooley had with Clayton Keller, because Cooley is probably thinking in his mind, and again, I am speculating at this point because it's only based off eye test and what I visually saw. He looked a little hesitant out there and at least wanted to give the room to Clayton Keller, because Clayton Keller is the guy that had a career high just the previous year. It's like Clayton Keller was the one that was getting all the points and was the the star, the shining star of that Arizona Coyotes team. So probably in Cooley's mind, he's like, okay, I'll take a step back from him because I'm still a rookie. The expectation from that, Tom, is as you mentioned, is that Tournier, development staff, whoever it is going into Cooley's mind, into Gunther's mind, into these other ones who are those more goal scorers, who are those ones that are gonna get all the points, and be like, this is your role. Don't be afraid. You are gonna be an important part of this team. Like, know what you're gonna be doing on this team, and stick to that, and just don't hesitate. Matthias Machelli's a different situation in which does he love to score? Absolutely. We've seen him score. But he's been the pass first guy. That's kind of what his role is. They're not necessarily worried about Matthias Machelli. But it's the others that they're probably going to get, talking their ear a little bit about.
Well, and the X factor too is going to be, for me, Sergachev this year, because Victor Hedman was the number one guy on the Tampa Bay defense with good reason. He's Victor Hedman. He's a future Hall of Famer. Okay. That's your number one defenseman for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, as Sergachev being 26, coming up through the ranks, learning from that guy was tremendous. But now he is going to be in a different situation where he's the man. He's not the guy aspiring to be the man anymore. So I want to see how he handles that transition, especially when quarterbacking a power play unit, and what his choices are when he's on the ice. And again, whether or not they decide to run 3 forwards, 2D on a power play unit, or is it going to be just one defenseman up top, Sergachev, and then 4 forwards, because we've seen both. So I'll be interested to see how he's going to fit into that puzzle as well, because Jersey's going to be the other guy in that equation.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, Tom, because I take a look at a similar thing that happened with Arizona and a couple, several seasons ago, that specifically on that blue line, that led to a question on, an elevated role for a certain player. Instead of being an aspiring player, they became that person. Those that are longtime Arizona Coyotes fans knows exactly what I'm talking about, probably, when it was the eventual trading of Oliver Ekman-Larsson away from the Coyotes over to Vancouver, and who becomes at that point, the quote de facto number one D man, Jacob Chikrin. He starts off that first year as the number one D man, struggling. Almost looks like he's lost. Like at that point, he did not expect to be that guy. Like everyone was now looking towards him, and I feel like he wasn't ready for that. I will be paying attention to that case and seeing what's the transition going to look like for Sergachev in this case. Because again, not only that, it's a completely new team.
Yes. And Robyn, I know we have to get to another break here. I do want to talk about the penalty killing side of the coin. So I don't know if you want to grab the break first, then we talk a little PK, or if you have any other thoughts you want to hit on the power play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll go ahead and we'll get to that penalty kill. We'll do that right after this. And today's episode also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up the peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So
that is one of the handiest things, by the way, to type in your vehicle, and it just pulls up parts for you. It's awesome.
Hey, someone that recently needed something.
Yes,
Tom. Tom. Those that follow me on those that follow me closely know exactly what I'm talking about.
Vehicle strife. Yeah.
Anyways, let's keep this conversation going, Tom, and keeping the theme of special teams, because that's a huge umbrella. Tom, on the discussion of those areas of concern and that needs to be addressed, because special teams had it, like you said, it had it up and down. We went really in depth on kind of what that power play might look like and what we're hoping from that and what they need to address there. But let's go to the flip side of what the other side looks like in the penalty kill, because that's also going to be a huge part of this special teams.
I'm going to throw some numbers out here for you. They were 8th worst in the NHL on the penalty kill, 76.3%. Actually, they were tied for 7th worst with Columbus. And then the net power play or penalty kill, the net penalty kill for the Coyotes, now Utah Hockey Club, was also in the bottom of the NHL last year, 79% net PK. Couple other things that really kind of grabbed me was the shot disparity. That was a four holy cow, I can talk, 4 shot difference to the negative for Arizona on average per game. And the other thing that hit me, it was interesting looking at their goals against, 3.34. The worst, as I mentioned to you pre-show, was the Sharks. They were almost 4 goals against a game. That's obscene. But 3.34, generally in the NHL, the accepted wisdom is it's what we call the race to 3. If you score 3 goals in a game, you should win. In today's NHL, that is shifted ever so slightly to 3.5 goals a game. Yep. So if you're giving up more than 3 a game, now it's a race to 4. And the Coyotes last year, giving up more than 3 goals a game made it a race to 4, which it's not that they were a bad offensive team, Robyn, but they weren't good enough to overcome that. And so both the penalty kill and the 5-on-5 situations needed to be better defensively. And that to me is, look, killing penalties is the hardest thing to do in hockey. It is stop-start. It's straight lines. It is pure energy and effort. It is just physical taxing work. It's the hardest thing to do, which is why a lot of guys who kill penalties take such great pride in it in the NHL. That is something where I think that Utah Hockey Club this year, if you want to change your identity as a team, you become hardworking and you become a really good penalty killing team. That unto itself shows me that you have turned a corner.
You're absolutely right. It would be definitely something to keep an eye on for that. I want to add one thing, Tom, and
Sure.
this is something that I'm going to be readdressing this specific bit later on in the show. But I want to kind of lump it in to kind of because it relates to the penalty kill situation of of that concern and kind of why and you'll realize why I'm bringing this up. The Coyotes last year and their expected goals per 60 against or whatever it was actually pretty low. They were actually pretty good about that. But the reason that being is because the Coyotes were one of, if not the most penalized team in the National Hockey League. So what naturally happens? They get put on the penalty kill a lot more. And when that happens, teams get more and more opportunities to score, to take shots, to do whatever it is. And that expected goals doesn't count on when you're on, doesn't necessarily get factored in on odd man situations, because it's like, okay, we're only really counting 5-on-5 or even strength. So they were really, again, they were just undisciplined in that case. And the defense wasn't even that good as it was. So you're putting so much extra pressure on that penalty kill, which was already struggling in the first place. Giving them even more stress wasn't necessarily the best thing to do, in this scenario, and it really ended up biting them in the butt.
And honestly, Robyn, even if you don't give up a goal, killing a penalty, I just talked about it being the most taxing thing you can do.
Lose that momentum too.
You lose your momentum, you tire out your players, and then what if you're defending 2, 3, 4 in a row? It gets worse. You get more tired. You get more run down. So then at the end in a 1-goal game, when you're trying to make a push, if you have those players out there who also you need offensively, who tax themselves killing 4 penalties in a game, 5 penalties in a game, you can't keep a parade to the box going. It is just detrimental up and down. Plus, when you're killing a penalty, obviously your offense is limited, but number 2, the ones you want out there trying to score the goals aren't out there. So they also get out of the flow of the game. You talk about momentum. It's not just defensive momentum, it's offensive momentum. You take yourself out of that role where you're continuing to rotate guys out. They're getting their shift. They're feeling good. You're in a rhythm. Everything's working for you. It kills so much of everything that you game plan for when you just keep putting yourself in the box.
Yeah. And even more so, sometimes you have some of your best players out there, like your best forwards. They're not on the penalty kill because your job isn't to try to score on the penalty kill. I mean, to some it is. I mean, longer time, like the Coyotes fans from several years back know the Coyotes team that had the most shorthanded goals in a season, because that's what they were at that point. But that was a completely different team than this Utah Hockey Club team, and the Coyotes team that was, of last season. Where they were,
even shorthanded goals are a product of being opportunistic. It's getting out up high, blocking shots at the point, getting in the way, and then it ricochets out off your shin pads and you take off. Those are different ways to be aggressive on the penalty kill and to make things happen that way. But I mean, whether you're aggressive, whether you're passive, no matter what it is, no matter how you kill penalties, whether you do diamond, whether you do box, whatever it is, 3+1, you have to be consistent about it. And then you also have to, as you say, be much more disciplined so that you're just spending less time shorthanded.
And the less time shorthanded you're going to get, the more opportunities you are going to just to feel better as a team, really, right? You don't like that, and that's why, like, what the best teams in the world, yeah, sure, like they take penalties. Everyone takes penalties, but the less amount of times you have, you're shorthanded on the ice, the better chance you have to score more. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, some of you might make fun of me for saying it's like, oh, that's an obvious thing to say, but sometimes you just need to flat out say the obvious, because sometimes teams aren't getting that, or at least they're just not taking advantage of that.
Yeah, and that's what you hope this year, that, the team is more disciplined and they are more situationally aware as well. I think that's going to be the other big key to turning special teams around on both sides, is situational awareness. And with young players, situational awareness grows with experience. And so, again, this is a team in the middle of a learning curve. And, we're talking about it the other day about, when is it realistic to look at playoffs? Not just yet. If they overachieve this year, maybe. But again, this is a 2-3 year project. And in the West, where a bunch of teams, including Nashville, just got a lot stronger, this is still a growth curve. This is
Yep.
still a phase where they're going to make some mistakes, but they're going to learn from them. They're going to grow, and they will be a better team at the end of this year than they are right now. So, and they're a better team now than they were at this time last year.
Oh yeah. Again, it's now a more experienced team. They, learning from those past mistakes is what we're really hoping for a lot of these players. Jumping on over from Arizona now into Utah to give all that excitement level. I mean, just not to say they're not excited. Everyone's already excited, but even extra excited as this team is slowly getting better. But what we're gonna do, Tom, is let's keep this conversation going. We're gonna end this part one. So for those that stuck through this entire part one, we thank you once again for making the show your first listen. We're free and available everywhere you get your shows. Again, don't forget to interact with us on social media, to give us that like, give us that subscribe. We'll try to interact with you guys. We always try to be very very active. Also, don't forget to join our text club, Insider Text Club, at 801-760-9033. Once again, 801-760-9033. Get access to our mailbag, get access to texting us one-on-one. That's a really unique feature, guys. Anytime you want to have any question, even if you want to say, hey, I want to keep this outside the mailbag, I just want to get your thought, text us at any time, and we will have periods where we'll answer those questions back during the week and get back to you guys. So it's a really unique opportunity for you guys to get advantage of that. But that's going to be it for this part one, and we'll see you guys next time.